Hello. Well, I'm Bishop Peter Fox from St Edward's, Castle Donington, but my friends know that already. I'm sorry I have to keep telling you that. It's one of the rules, apparently. We want to make sure that nobody goes wandering in here and thinks I'm someone else. So we have a lot of friends in Papua New Guinea and in the Solomons and in Vanuatu and in New Caledonia. Uh, and and I hope some of them are listening today. They'll recognise this. This is a kundu drum. This is from Papua New. This is actually from the Gulf region of Papua New Guinea. The hourglass drum is about as Papua New Guinean as it gets. This is part of Angie's work. She's she's a terrific maker of quilts and generally sewing and embroidery and all those sorts of things. This is a quilt she made, which is all about Papua New Guinea. You probably can't see it, but we've got women here on the way to market. They're all carrying billams, which are like string bags, on the back of their heads, hanging down from the back of their heads, which is a scene you see all the time in Papua New Guinea. And there's some Papua New Guinea houses there, and there's a down here there's a little. This is called a lakatoy. It's an outrigger canoe, and it's got these very peculiar sort of special lobster tail kind of the lobster claw shaped sails. So all sorts of things that remind us of our time in Papua New Guinea. People in Papua New Guinea were very kind to me. I mean, when I arrived out there, I didn't know anybody's language, so they all spoke English, which helped enormously, or at least those that had a chance to go to school spoke English, and the rest taught me how to speak Pidgin a little bit. In fact, the people of Papua New Guinea were extremely kind to me, and so are my friends in other parts of the Melanesian region, people from Solomons and Vanuatu. Got a lot of good friends there. And of course, Melanesian people are black, some of them coal black, and other people are sort of brown coloured, and it doesn't bother them a bit being black. And I was white, and that didn't bother them either. They just looked after me, which was just as well, because to be honest with you, if I hadn't had Papua New Guinea people looking after me, well, I couldn't have survived 5 minutes. I mean, when I first got there, I knew nothing about the culture or the people. But you know, they put me up in their houses. They let me into their homes. They fed me. For several years in Papua New Guinea, when I first went there, I didn't have a house of my own or any kind of accommodation of my own. So they just put me up in their own houses and let me live amongst them. They were very kind to me and never seemed to treat me negatively just because I was a different colour. They just let me be part of the family. Mind you, to be absolutely honest with you, they do find white people a bit strange. I mean, we have some very strange customs. White people, well, English people anyway, we let our dogs come right in the house with us, live with our dogs in the house. That seems a very strange thing to a Papua New Guinea person. You let your dog live inside. Doesn't seem quite clean somehow. And we did all sorts of strange things. We made jokes about our mother-in-laws. I mean, unimaginable for a Papua New Guinean to do a thing like that. In fact, we do everything strangely. When someone walks into the room that we respect, we stand up, when any good Melanesian person would immediately sit down. How else would you show respect in Melanesia? And we do things like we walk straight up to people we haven't met, and we hold out our hand and take their hand in a good firm handshake and tell them what our name is right out front. Now, to a Papua New Guinean, to a Melanesian culture anywhere in the Solomons or Vanuatu, that seems very that seems very rude and brash, just handing out your name like that. So if I was only talking to Papua New Guineans, no way I'd begin by saying, "I'm Bishop Peter Fox and I'm from Castle Donington." That would be very rude. But you see, we were what Papua New Guinea people in Pidgin they call Narrokine. We were another kind. We had different ways, different customs, and they understood that. And although I did things in a way that seemed strange to them in their culture, they just understood it and forgave it and tried to teach me their way. So they taught me how to avoid striding over people's legs when they're sitting down on the floor, never ever to step over food because immediately the food becomes useless. They taught me how to show a bit more respect to my in-laws, lessons I rapidly forgot when I got back to England, mother-in-law if you're listening. And, they taught me how to chew betel nut. When Angie came out to join me in Papua New Guinea, they did the same for her. They just made her part of the family. They called us Narrokine. Sometimes, when they didn't think we were listening, they had another nickname for white people from overseas. They called us Dim Dim. It's not a very flattering expression, but it is sort of affectionate. And to be honest with you, I was dim dim. I mean, I wouldn't have lasted 5 seconds if you put me in the middle of the jungle and told me to find my way home. I wouldn't have known how to behave. I wouldn't have known how to find food. I wouldn't have known how to do anything. But Papua New Guineans took care of me. They took care of me. And they might sometimes have called me dim dim. Well, I was a dim dim in Papua New Guinea terms. But they also called me Wontok. And Wontok means friend. They let me be their friend. And to be honest with you, the fact that I was white and they were black was just something interesting. It was nothing to get bothered about, nothing to be ashamed of. Being black is nothing to be ashamed of. That's why you won't catch me using those funny expressions people use these days, so-called politically correct expressions. People of colour. I hate that. I mean, how dare we do that anyway? Your average white man, he goes red when he's been baked in the sun, he goes blue when he's out in the cold, and he turns green when he dies, and we call them coloured. The reality is that kind of prissiness of language, in my book, it's another kind of racism. It's a kind of heavily disguised racism. After all, what's wrong with being black or white? It really doesn't matter very much. And if sometimes we make each other laugh, and I certainly made Papua New Guineans laugh, they look at the way I did things and oh, this dim dim, he just doesn't know how to do things properly. If I made them laugh occasionally, so what? So what? Friends make each other laugh sometimes. So it's not a matter of looking up and down somebody because of the colour. It's a matter of being interested in each other, being curious about each other's ways of doing things, each other's culture. I think we need to get away from all that sort of mealy-mouthed messing about with language and just get on with getting to know each other, getting to like each other and learning from each other. Yeah, I always think myself, all the laws and things that get passed about equal rights, they're all important. Of course they are. But the real achievements are made by people like Lenny Henry and the cast of that program Goodness Gracious Me, who took racism, silly racial prejudice, and they just made fun of it as something stupid, which is what it actually is. I think we need to be free to ask each other questions, find out how another person's culture works, get to know it, learn to respect it, and learn to respect each other. As you'll gather, I'm really not a racist. In fact, some of my best friends are white. God bless.